Good morning, everybody. It's really early in California, and we're about to go to California. And I want to thank Marbue Marke for getting up so early. He's a winemaker. He's probably always up this early. I am speaking about Juneteenth with Marbue, and all month I've been doing some diversity chats. Next Monday is going to be Aaron Thorpe, who's making a vodka called Super Gay Vodka. That's amazing. And then Leo Robacek on Tuesday about diversity in the mixology world. Marbue is here, and I just want to say thank you to Frederick Wildman for making this happen, for bringing us together, people, and Marbue is just wonderful. And he's got a sunny day out there. It's beautiful. I just FaceTimed him, and it's really lovely out in California. I think he's there. Oh, hi, Ayla. Ayla, guys, you should follow Bordeaux Walking Tour. She's amazing. And doing stuff in Egypt too. Hi, Marbue.
Hey, how's it going?
Amazing. It looks gorgeous there. What a day. Wow. The vines. Amazing. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. Thank you.
Thank you for getting up so early and scouting out a good location. I just love seeing you in the vines.
Well, it's a pretty day and the temperature is pretty good. It's about to get really hot, so I'm happy our time selection was a good time.
That's
early,
good. And I was just saying it's early out there, but you're probably up early every day, right?
Well, this time of year, as I was saying, I try to beat the heat, so it's going to get a little warm, and so if I'm up early, it helps out for the vines.
So I don't know that I even told you this when we chatted, that I started doing this during the quarantine because a lot of my friends were stuck in their studio apartments in New York, and the winemakers couldn't get out and visit us wine buyers and stuff. And so to bring everybody together was very good, but also very optimistic. And to see you in the vines just is so uplifting because it's optimistic. Mother Nature keeps going, even through this horrible year we went through.
Yeah, no, actually, for us here, at least for me personally, and I know a lot of my friends here locally, it's super optimistic because in 2020, obviously there was COVID, and we were all looking to being uplifted by the 2020 vintage, and unfortunately 2020 I wasn't able to make any wine because of taint, etc. So this is doubly important for us, not only just because of looking to get push past the pandemic and getting everybody vaccinated, but also it's just really an opportunity to actually get grapes and get our hands into making wine. And
yeah, and it's also fun to talk to somebody in California because your state and my state both lifted restrictions, and so we're kind of getting back to normal, sort of.
Yes, no, it's actually pretty. It's actually working out really well. Hopefully, we can have a lot of people be able to come out and visit and participate, and we can start seeing each other again. I recently was able to see my mom for over a year. It's been well over a year and a half, post-pandemic. So that's good, So it's good. Families can get together and people can get together again.
Totally. So I digress because I had so much to say to you, and I'm so excited to speak. But would you introduce yourself and tell your story about how you got where you are? Because your story is interesting.
That's interesting. My name is Marbue Marke, which I'm sure everybody can see that now in the spelling. I'm a guy who helps people who are very, very particular about what they taste, winery owners in particular, about what their wines taste like and what they want their wines to taste like, make that vision or plan come to life and help them get there. So that's what I do. How I got there, be trusted to do it. It's on. We could probably spend 2 hours or maybe even 2 days about that. But basically, I guess the short story is I'm a technically trained professional winemaker, i.e. via USC Davis. I guess that's what we say in the industry when you're technically trained. And then I've had a breadth of experience, so small, large, medium size, and expertise from barrels to different types of production, different varietals, different locations, but all North Coast based, we should say, and California based. So I'm a California based winemaker, and what is it, 25 years, plus years of doing this. So that's me in a nutshell.
I still can't get over just the radiant blue behind you, and the green is just it's incredible. It's so nice to see that. Are you? I just a friend in Champaign just said sent pictures that she's in flower. Have you guys started to flower?
Actually, we just completed set.
You did.
Yeah, we just completed set. Now, where I'm standing right now is actually I'm in the southeastern portion, and excuse the plane, that's how they fly by because the Napa Airport is just south of us. But I'm in the southeastern portion of Napa Valley. That's where I'm standing right now, and so we are actually the coolest spot. Actually, what we say coolest and coldest. So we are usually the last to go. So I was just up valley earlier yesterday, and they actually had complete set. We have kind of rounded out set here in the last week or so. So set's complete, and we're actually sitting in the lowest spot because on the hillside right now there's some hedging going on, and the tractor's going on going around. So just to get us some good clarity. So, but some hedging's going on, and we're doing fruit zone adjustments right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so for exposure, balancing crop load, etc. So that's what's happening here,
Awesome.
and also that's what's happening down. There will be complete also down in Spanish Springs Vineyard, where Oceano's based.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're one of the reasons we're here to talk is about Juneteenth because that's Saturday the 19th. I keep
Yeah.
weeks flying by,
Yeah.
and Frederick Wildman imports the Oceano, and they brought us together to discuss Oceano, which we're going to do next. But we talked a little bit about Juneteenth on the phone. But would you explain your experience with Juneteenth and your feelings about it, and maybe tell people kind of an overview about what it is?
Yeah. So Juneteenth has been called different things. Freedom Day, Jubilee Day, I believe was the original name for it, and it's a celebration of emancipation or the recognition of the freed slaves in America, and really dependent. It was really recognized in, and can't remember the town. It was Galveston, but I could be wrong. In Texas, when the news was sort of the last free slaves that actually got the news of it, and they really recognized it there, and it's really being recognized more and more. Now, personally, and I should mention that it's pretty significant that so I was, of course, wasn't born here in America. I was actually born and raised in Freetown, Sierra Leone, on the west coast of Africa. So my exposure to the culture of African American and the impact of slavery is fairly recent. Okay, so more than half of my life, but basically I've only experienced it in the back half of my life, not growing up, and I didn't study it in school. I actually had to study African American history, thanks to Dr. Raphael Jackson at Consumer River College, but to get into UC Davis as a teenager. So that's my experience and introduction. From a practicing standpoint, I was blessed. My stepmother as an African American who actually was helped educate me in that and witness her practices. But to be quite frank, I mean, as a young single person, not really recognized and practicing. But in the last 5 years, I do have a little boy, and now I have two boys that I wonder about the world I'm living in, the education they're going to be living into. So obviously, Juneteenth a little bit more takes a little bit more importance now in my life, just to be brutally honest, because I'm passing on and into the world they're going to be moving into, and of course, what that means. So, yeah. So for me, it's definitely more important to recognize now because I'm sharing the information and getting myself more educated, if you will. And so it's just a personal thing. I mean, and the other thing I would mention, and I think it's relevant to our times, is that, you know, one of the big things in the original celebrations that they did do, in the 1890s was a lot about voter education and getting first free slaves educated about how to vote and making sure they were empowered to vote. So I think with everything going on, I think it's probably very important that everybody make that
Very
message.
much so. Yeah.
So,
wow.
But I think that is a nutshell. Yeah. I think
I was talking to a friend who yesterday she grew up in Texas, and so her experience is a little more concentrated. They really had parties down there for Juneteenth, but it still makes my head hurt a little bit to think that the Emancipation Proclamation was like 1862, and it took 3 years till like the armies got down to Texas till actually, you know, it's a little crazy. They didn't have Twitter back then.
And no, and that's actually one of the things I was thinking about when you asked me to have this conversation. One of my, there's a lot of, people can put about big tech and the news and the labor. There's all these complaints about, the world we live in and too much information. But really, that's a good example right there about it took 3 years for really a critical piece of information to be able to be transformed. I mean, and for me personally, I always thought back in 1999. I was caught in Freetown. There was a little Civil War thing they had there, and my father was living here and had all the cable channels, but could not get any information about what was happening in Freetown during what was actually happening. So he had to call his sister in London, England, who was seeing it on the news, but we couldn't see the news here in California. So that was 1999. Okay, so
That's
so just give you how we are moving forward. It's an imperfect world, but I do think things are a lot better. The access to information is better about what's happening internationally.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So do you have anything, can you tell me what it's like being a black winemaker in California these days? Has it changed a lot in the past year? Has it been easier, difficult, or what do you have to say about that?
Well, I think it's it definitely has changed. I don't know the impact. So it's funny. I've been doing this for 25 plus years. I'm doing the same thing in the same region. So with the same people.
Right.
Now, but definitely there's a definitely palpable change. There's a lot more conversation. And even before, so definitely this changed. And what I don't know, we're going to see is the impact, obviously, because since everything's been closed down, is limited interaction, right? So we'll see how much more as things open up and things sort of get back to normal, what actual changes they are. But I do think there is, for my own part, I definitely think there is. I've had better communication, at least finding other African Americans in the industry and to connect with. I think that's been, the most positive thing.
Yeah.
And in particular, younger aspiring winemakers, right? I mean, that I think has been the gift, if you will, and exposure to the industry as a practice.
Right.
Because and I always couch this because my exposure to the African American experience is limited. I mean, it's more than most 20-something years. Almost 30 years. 30 years. About 30 years. But I'm also in Northern California. I don't want people to lose that. I've always been here. I'm in the North Coast. I've lived in Napa or Sonoma. Or Sacramento or Davis, so I'm in really a liberal haven. Okay, and there's very few places more liberal. So I always want to couch that, and to be honest, I'm practicing in the wine industry that is most people in general. I'll say 90% of the people in general, like yourself, are drawn to the industry because they're passionate about wine. Right. So that naturally gives me and others, I believe, a natural common ground to start from. So I've been very and in winemaking, particularly in the past and even more now, it's a very difficult task when you're cutting your teeth to get into.
Yeah.
And particularly if you're not blessed with a gajillion dollars, your father doesn't own the winery, et cetera, et cetera. Right. It's definitely and so there's definitely a body and a respect for the guys who go through and do that. So to be honest, I have been blessed with some really, really lifetime friendships. Guys I went to school with, and really just meeting people in general, and appreciating my craft, really. Right. And but it is still America, and there's still an experience, and and we remain hopeful. But I think saying what the impact is right now will be a little premature.
Right, and I got to say, I'm really thankful to Frederick Wildman for letting me do these chats, because just to show the different people out in the wine world, I've done a lot of pride gay things, and just growing up, I remember seeing a gay person on TV made me feel a little bit more normal, and just seeing you maybe is going to inspire somebody else to know that that's a possibility, whereas some other people of color might not think, oh, I can be a winemaker, and now maybe they do. So
No,
hopefully.
that's been. I mean, I've had in just literally the last month, met three very young and very um, not very young, but young. And I guess I think very young because I'm thinking my own, but young, African American kids who are looking at this as a career and from a production standpoint. Because I think there have been people in the sales and the hospitality industry, but from a production who are really going through the process right now. Being some of them have already been educated and actually going through, like I said, that really tough spot of cutting your teeth before you get a breakthrough opportunity, because you really need an opportunity to practice your craft, right? I've been really blessed by either Mike Martin here at Italics Wine Growers or Rachel Martin with Oceano, with giving me the keys to these to really unique fruit and sourcing and everything else to make it happen. So as they go through that process that I've gone through, it hopefully gives them the faith to keep going. And
Yeah, exactly.
and I look.
So let's
Well,
talk about wine. I want to ask you. So tell me We're here to talk about Oceano from which is Frederick Wildman, and they sent me this Chardonnay, which I got to say is gorgeous. Sometimes California can be too over the top, and there's like restraint and tension in this wine, which is what I look for.
yeah.
I like opulence, but it's so clean and fresh. It's definitely California on the nose, but it's so clean and fresh. It's so. Could you tell us about Oceano? But I also want to hear about the other wineries you work for.
No, so Oceano, I think it's perfect. I think you just really that was the goal. Exactly what you thought you said. Oceano's owned by Rachel Martin. She was what I would call a longtime industry veteran.
Right.
She had been in the industry for 17 years before she decided to break out on her own. She lives in New York and was based out of Virginia, so she was already on the Eastern Coast. And so what I think is fascinating is that, so Rachel, when I had the fortune to meet her and we're talking about what she wanted to do, she really wanted a wine she could drink. She would drink. And obviously we tasted, I think we told the story many times, but it was at least 24 Chardonnays that were made from the region where she had committed to get these grapes from, and she fell in love with the site. And I said, well, we couldn't find anything that we both agreed that was something that we would want to drink. And with her palate being a little bit more Eurocentric, I like to call it.
Okay.
And so it was a balance of how can we bring that Eurocentric or Euro impact, which is the nice balance, the elegance, the acidity and the freshness, but also I really wanted the drinkability and the flavor, right? Yeah. So because without the flavor, like you said, the nose, the aromatics, and some of the fruit expression, is it really California? And so I do want to be California, but you probably see the alcohol is not high. It's really nicely balanced. It's really fresh. It cleans, and it does have a lot of good weight. So
yeah,
very happy with the Chardonnay. I think it expresses wonderfully, reflects that region because it's so moderated, really. That's what I like to say, because it's not that the temperature is cold. It's moderated by the ocean influence, and it's got its own unique microclimate, really, in that it's in a bowl. It's just really something that came really together between sight, her vision, and I was able to just put a few things together in terms of the plan and how to bring it all together. And extremely happy. We are beyond thrilled with that wine.
It's really good. You mentioned the ocean influence? Is that, I love the seahorses on the cork and the label and the name Oceano. Is that just a reference to that, or is there something in the soil from old underwater?
No. So the seahorses. So Oceano is a town close by. So, but the seahorses actually are a reference to Rachel Martin and her husband Kurt Deutsch. They actually saw seahorses on it was their first travel date, not their first date. But they traveled together and they went scuba diving and saw seahorses. And for those who are divers or not divers, seahorses are very rare to be seen. It's very rare to see it, and they saw it. And the other significance of that is that seahorses mate. They mate for life. So
that's awesome. So, there's the two on the label, or it's easy to see on the label. That's very cool.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty cool. I actually like it. They went diving in their first date. Interesting. Travel date. They went traveling. I believe it was a family vacation, right? Like family vacation. So he was been put to the test actually. So good. It's actually a pretty good story. So they
That is
want
awesome.
yeah, it's a symbol for yeah.
So what other wines does the Oceano make, or is it just the Chardonnay?
So Chard and Pinot, and mostly it's because it's location specific, and the Pinot Noir is actually, I think, much more of it's a compliment. We've experimented and looked at different things, but being the focus that we try to express the vineyard in the location, we thought the vineyard does actually have other varieties, but we don't necessarily think it reflects what we want to communicate and fits in terms of what the style. So we don't. So we do make Pinot Noir, which again, try to make a statement in terms of freshness, elegance. I do like to think the wine is very, I use the word strawberry because I think it's a character that I like. And I don't want to go down the Burgundy track, but it's really, I do believe that Pinot Noir should have a lot of floral, more rose and strawberry as a character. And so and I try to capture that and also keep it in check. So it's not an extracted, jammy Pinot Noir. It's more balanced and more restrained and a little bit more complex. So, but it definitely has a fruit lead because I do believe it's California, but restrained in terms of extraction, tannins, and of course alcohol. So,
Marbue, could you just, for people that might not know, tell us a little bit, just in general, you sort of did already, about San Luis Obispo County, and then particularly the Spanish Springs Vineyard is, well, I'll let you explain.
Yeah, so so I guess the best way, so one, I should say, there is going to be a proposed slow coast AVA that's hopefully going to be completed here in a year, which Spanish Springs Vineyard is within. So San Luis Obispo County is, of course, southwest. Well, it's more central coast, more central south and west. So it's right on the coast, and of course, home of California Slow. But Spanish Spring Vineyard is actually south of the city of San Luis, east, right across of Highway 101, for those of you who've traveled through California, and it's just right across there. And so it's really, I think it's under a mile and a half as a crow flies from the actual ocean. And it does go up to, and I'm gonna shoot myself now, I don't remember exactly, but it does go up to about 900 feet in elevation.
Okay.
Maybe even 1,200, but the vineyard is actually planted in a bowl after the it's really the first ridge after the ocean, so it does kind of create this effect. A lot of people have probably been exposed to Edna Valley, and Edna Valley is just south, north and south of there, and so but they don't have that big bowl effect, if you will, and so you have a little bit more valley effect. So it does capture that sort of central California expression, but it's just really moderated by the ocean just because of proximity. So in other words, it's not so one of the things you're saying about the expression of the California, you can get a lot more fruit because we do have some nice warmth, but you do have the moderating, you don't really get that super hot. And so I think it's kind of a nice balance versus, I think other ocean influenced sites in California can be a little colder. And so they can be a little more mineral and neutral driven.
Okay.
So, extreme Sonoma Coast, because that's a big AVA. But if you think of extreme Sonoma Coast, for example, that doesn't necessarily have as many degree days, if you will.
Nice. It's interesting to hear about a bowl because often you hear an amphitheater or a slope, and I like the idea of just a bowl that's like its own little thing. I think it's awesome.
I just like bowl because I think that's what I think of it as.
Yeah.
And we don't often talk as much about the microclimates as it is, and I'm probably over now with my age and specifics. That's almost I've been doing this and how my career has evolved. But these estate vineyards are all not made equal. There are portions that are better than others, or not necessarily. I don't like the word better. Really, better is not a good word. There are portions that are different than others, and so even and a lot of people talk about soil. The soil is not contiguous, right? It's not just all a homogeneous straight type, right? It's not all the same, particularly on these bowls. So if anybody thinks of how the bowl was developed over years and years of rain and drain, so it's just sort of a nice way of just thinking, just kind of this really nice expression, and then and you can just depend on where that bowl sits and how it's sat and shaped, and the exposure, and it really adds a nice nuance to enjoy, at least from winemakers to kind of pick and choose within that bowl what matches and what comes out and how it expresses per vintage.
It's great and it's easy to understand. What other wines what other wines, I want to know what is it like working with a bunch of different wineries? It sounds like you travel a lot too.
No, actually, well, no, actually, I don't travel that much. And I don't, and I guess I should say I don't work with that many projects. So
Okay.
so it's a little different. So I do make wine for some people. So I do make wine for Oceano, but I primarily make wine for my Italian wine growers, which is right here in Cremsville, California, where I'm based. I do have a consultancy, which I do consult. So a very famous winemaker pointed out, there's a difference between being a winemaker and a consultant.
Okay.
So there's a consulting practice, and of course there's a winemaking. So from a winemaking standpoint, I'm pretty much Napa based. I only work with Oceano, and I bring the grapes in a refrigerated truck up here. So there is some travel with that, but it's not actually as bad as you think. I can go and check the vineyard within
Okay.
drive there and be back up here and check the vineyards here. So there is driving, obviously, because in the valley here, but it's well worth it, as you could see. This is, starting about now, when we're done with fruit zone adjustments, I'll be walking the vineyards all the way through, through every grape is picked. And the way it works, obviously, planning wise for wines that I actually do make versus wines that I just consult on. So wines I actually do make, works well. Just the life cycle, right? Pinot Noir and Chardonnay are earlier in the cycle versus Cabernet Sauvignon that I do here is later in the cycle. So that's how it works. But yeah, but if you have to travel, which I have done and I'm not close to, it's not, particularly from the consultancy side, it's not that challenging.
That's okay.
Fortunately, the way it worked was, the pandemic came and I was in the middle of shuffling up the consultancy, so it worked out really good at
okay.
the right time. So
yeah, it's been a year for shuffling for sure.
Exactly. So and I have two young boys. I have so it actually it's worked out for me in terms of time, so I get to spend more time with my boys. So less work. It has its drawback for less work, but as far as the consultancy, but I get to play a little bit more in the vineyard, and I also get to play with my kids a little bit more too.
Yeah, there's a number of sommeliers out here in New York that had babies, and they were able to spend the pandemic with babies, and it was kind of awesome. So good for you. We're getting right up to the half-hour point, so I will let you go. I know you have a busy day and get out of there before it gets hot. I want to point out one thing. One of the wines that Wildman sent me is this Le Clos from Chateau Fouissé that I just spoke with the owner of the chateau last week, and this is one of the ones that's now Premier Cru. Because Pouilly Fouissé has Premier Cru now, and the Monopole Le Clos from the chateau is going to be a. So I'm trying to think. Maybe I should hold on to this because this right before it became a Premier Cru. Do you have anything you want to tell people before I go? Is there something I didn't cover, or any words of wisdom? I know I kind of threw that at you without asking in advance, but anything you want to say before we go?
No, I just say, I guess my goal is make the world a little bit better place than I found it. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. Say hi to your friends, love your family, and enjoy your life. And that's all you can do. And just make little changes, make a big ones. My favorite saying my mom shared with me was, I've always taken since I was a kid, little drops of water make one mighty ocean. So any little thing anybody can do to raise, let's try and make it bright. And
that's really good. Very nice way to end this. Thank you so much. It has been a delight to get to meet you and to chat today. I really, really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I appreciate it too. Thank you.
All right, we'll talk soon, I hope. Take care now. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.